Okay, well, we're talking about the fire that occurred on July 19th that took 5 students' lives,
Yeah.
and it's a very unfortunate event. And you were one of those people that lived at the location of the site. So, tell us a little bit about your story.
So I went to bed around 2:30 a.m. that night. I lived on the second story. I literally had a date set for the next day to go move into my new apartment. I had all my boxes packed up and everything in this apartment, and I woke up around 4:30 a.m. to a bunch of screams and windows crashing. No fire alarms or anything like that were going off. So I immediately thought that somebody was being attacked, one of my neighbors or whatever. So I was gonna go outside and see, what was going on, see if I could help people. And I opened up my bedroom door to see flames coming into, my living room, through the windows. The windows had broke, and I was like, okay, so there's a fire going on. That's what it is. So I immediately closed my door as fast as I could. I knew my roommate wasn't home, so I didn't go check on him or anything. I knew he was at his girlfriend's house. So I closed my door and immediately called 911. And I said, yes, there's a fire in San Marcos at Iconic Villages. And actually, no, they asked me. They were like, at Iconic Villages? And I said, yes. And they were like, okay, we've already gotten multiple calls. We're responding right now. I said, okay. So I immediately started to open my window. I knew that, I couldn't get out the other way because, my entire apartment complex, out my front door was engulfed in flames. So I immediately start opening my window as I'm on the 911 call. Hung up with them, opened up the window, and I saw people fleeing into the parking lot where all the cars were, and I immediately started yelling, does anybody have a ladder, or the fire trucks here yet? I was freaking out, I was just in shock. I didn't want to jump out of my window, and a guy below me was like, no man, you're just gonna have to jump, get the hell out of there. And so before that happened, something that shocked me very hard was I saw a young man by the name of Zach Sutterfield, actually, who was running out of the right side of my apartments on fire. And his friends were saying, stop, drop, and roll. And so immediately I knew, dang, this is bad. So I started getting out of my window. A young man was actually down at the bottom of my window and was trying to help me so that I wouldn't break my ankles or anything. And he was like, just hang down and then drop, you're tall, it probably won't be a bad fall. So I started hanging out of my window, and I immediately thought, I don't have any of my belongings on me except for my phone. And I'm a music producer, so my computer, which I just bought, the year before, 6 months before, that I worked really hard for too. I had basically my whole life on it, all the music I had been making, stuff like that. And I thought, man, I can't let my computer burn up in this fire. So I actually went back in, pulled myself back up, and it literally wasn't, it was as far as from right here to this corner right there. And I got back up over and went like this and grabbed my computer. By the way, the room was completely smoky at this point. I tried to look across the room for my wallet and my keys, and nothing. I couldn't see anything. So I was just like, okay, screw it. I'm just gonna get the computer. So grabbed the computer and got back down. I handed it to the guy. It was kind of like a leap of faith because I had to drop it and he had to catch it. But he caught it, and I got down and got out of there. He handed me my computer, and then this young man walks up to me in a panic and goes, hey, I have to find the rest of my friends. We just put him out, talking about Zach, who was on fire. He said, we just got him put out. Could you please stay with him and make sure he's okay? And I was like, of course, I'm here to help people, I'm fine. And so I walked over to him, and as the reports have said, 75% of his body was burned. Luckily, he was out at this point. I was smart enough to know not to touch him because of the burns and lacerations that he had. So I kind of guided him up. I was like, Zach, come on, let's get up. And he slowly got up, and there was no ambulances there yet or not, but I knew we had to get him away from the building. So, I was just guiding him, come on, I got you, we're right here, stay with me. And finally an ambulance showed up, and I started jumping up and down, flagging them down. and they ran up to me and I was like, this man is burnt, like we have to get him to the hospital immediately. And I've been told by like his parents and the fire marshals that if I wouldn't have helped him like that, he could have died. So, you know, that makes me feel good. And I haven't checked articles in a while, but I'm pretty sure that Zach Sutterfield is still alive. So that makes me feel good inside about that. But after that, I got him in the ambulance, turned around and immediately saw a girl that I knew named Beth who lived right down the hall from me. And she was clutching her guitar, sitting on a curb. I walked up to her and I was like, Beth, are you okay? And she said, no, don't touch me. I just broke my ankle. And I looked down at her ankle and it was like really broken. And I've also heard that multiple people, you know, broke their ankles jumping out of that building.
Yeah, I saw reports of that too.
Yeah. So I left her alone. She seemed to be in like really bad shock. And then I called my dad immediately and was just like, Dad, I'm watching my apartments burn down. And I just helped a guy who was on fire. And I was in shock myself. Like I burst into tears. I didn't know like what to think of it at all. And then I just sat there on the hill and like watched my apartments burn down.
That's a very,